Here's my audience, my cousin Keyshawn, my aunt Georgette, and my mother. Hello, my name is Corey Hunt, and today I'm here to pose a question. Was the Confederacy really trying to preserve slavery in America? Now, some people say that they were fighting for state rights, and others were saying that they were actually fighting to preserve slavery. Today I'm here to present evidence that suggests that they were trying to preserve slavery. But I won't argue that there isn't evidence of the contrary. So I want to talk about a man by the name of General Patrick Cleburne. He was born in 1828 in Ireland. And being an Irishman, he joined the British Army, the 41st Foot, and he fought in many battles in Ireland. And eventually he wanted to go to college, but he failed his entrance exam. So he was embarrassed. He didn't want to face his family, so he decided to purchase his discharge from the Army, and he moved to America, and he eventually settled on a place called Helena, Arkansas. And that's when he joined a group called the Yale Rifles in 1861. And the past about the Yale Rifles is a little bit murky. People aren't sure whether he helped form it, or if he joined later, but there are reports that say he joined as a private, and he was so good at what he did in battles that he quickly rose up to captain. So he's a very well-established person. He's someone who's well-respected and, generally liked in the South and in that Confederate area. So he was also known as the Stonewall of the West. So he was clearly very established. He was basically the counterpart of Stonewall Jackson, who's pretty famous. But what I'm talking about him for is that he proposed that the slaves be armed in the Confederate Army so that they could possibly defeat the Union. In his proposal, he said that slavery was their most vulnerable point and continued embarrassment, and also an insidious weakness. By that, he meant when Union soldiers would come in and, take over plantations or farms and stuff, they would see the liberated slaves, and the slaves could tell them where things are, landmarks and all that, and that would give the Union a strategic advantage. So he was saying, if we freed the slaves, they would have no reason to turn against us because they would be with us, and they would want to fight with us because this is their home as much as ours. In his argument, he also acknowledges that the Confederacy says that we're not fighting for slavery, and he says if that were true, then, they would willingly give it up just to protect their rights in that area. So Cleburne's proposal was met with a lot of opposition. His direct superior, a man by the name of Joseph Johnston, he decided that he would try to suppress Cleburne's proposal to free and arm the slaves for the Confederacy. But his assistant, decided to go ahead and forward it to the president of the Confederacy, President Jefferson Davis. He was the president of the Confederacy. And on behalf of President Davis, Johnston said that he noted that Cleburne was a very patriotic individual, but he didn't give his proposal much thought. And most of the copies of Cleburne's proposal was destroyed, except for a few. And over the next few weeks, a lot of people were actually talking about it, and, people actually started thinking in the Confederacy of the possibilities, but it never panned out. And there were also petitions in the Confederacy amongst the civilians that wanted them to enlist slaves because they knew that they were outmatched and they were losing, but there were never really any serious considerations, and President Davis himself knew that he couldn't just arm the slaves and keep them in captivity. He knew that he would have to free them, so he had a man by the name of Duncan Kenner. He was a congressman in the Confederacy. He sent them to Europe to be advised, and he wanted to know if it was possible to create like a Confederate version of an emancipation, but everybody advised against it, and it never panned out. And when Davis brought up the possibility of putting former slaves into non-combative roles within the Confederacy, the Confederate Congress, they turned him down because 80% of them owned slaves themselves, so they were completely opposed to it. So we can't really know what's in the heart of every single person or what's on their mind, but we can see through their actions that they really wanted to, preserve slavery. The thought of freeing slaves and having them fight with you, that was just sort of absurd to them. So when asking, was the Confederacy really trying to preserve slavery, then we can come up to our conclusions based on the evidence that we've seen and other evidence that, we'll eventually see.